I'm exhausted with attending panels, lectures, protests where, rather than working on reducing real problems of educational, economic, social, racial inequalities, and I feel like I have to spend the time convincing people these inequities even exist. Is that perhaps part of your reluctance to work with the evangelicals, I think, question to you? Also, when I attend these events, I become much more cognizant of my responsibility as a white person to shut up and listen. By doing that, I've heard from black folks that these events often make them feel like a problem that needs to be solved. How do we start to tackle these sorts of issues without making black folks feel themselves to be the problem?
Wow, what a question. And that person managed to get that all in that card in a short amount of time.
Two sides.
I am impressed. I am impressed. Because there's so much in there that I resonate with. I mean, just a quick thing. We were both talking when we met last to talk about tonight. We talked about some of the fatigue that sets in when you talk about race, and especially in Christian context, because we do have this God of niceness we serve that, and I've noticed in Minnesota, it's like a big God of niceness that we just can't, we have to be careful, and so we avoid things and talk about our guns or something. But I do think there's. It's amazing how much I've heard people talk about guns instead of loving your enemies. It's amazing because there's actually a verse about loving your enemies. I don't see any verse about guns, but it's just remarkable to me. But
don't get me going.
I know. Oh yeah, not you, right? So
I can use a gun sometimes and put it right here. You know?
But the thing about what that person's getting at is this sense of, it does seem like we're a problem that needs to be solved, and then I noticed that when I have had these conversations in mixed congregation, that white people feel like they're a problem that needs to be solved, and I don't know an easy way around that. I don't know a way around those kind of feelings other than to acknowledge that I'm feeling a certain way. Maybe that's just a good, healthy thing to do, but I think at the end of the day, there's a certain reality about power that I've said already, but has to be acknowledged. When the young white kid, just a year ago, right, went into the church and shot people because it was a historic black church, and we all saw that story, and just been almost exactly 1 year, right? And it's been in the news again to talk about it. When the kid comes in to do that, we as a society, we get kind of worked up, and then we right away figure, it's got to be something else going on, okay, he's mentally ill or so these things, but there was this sense that blackness presented a problem for him. And he carried out an action that maybe others would never really actually do, so it took him to another place because of his issues, whatever. But there are a lot of people who hate us. So I don't know how we can avoid this sense of a problem, the people being the problem, other than to acknowledge what Greg said about principalities and powers, that we are pitted against each other. So I don't know, that's a roundabout, that's not even really an answer. I'm just kind of acknowledging, I agree with what all has been on what that person wrote in that paper. But I still think that there's that if I value relationship, then I've got to kind of slog through till I figure out how to love. I mean, we do that in our marriages, we do that in our friendships, so we need to figure this out as a church. But I want to acknowledge that I do think, from my perspective, that white Christianity has had the luxury, white Christians in America have had the luxury of not having to think that through or work through those issues, and can kind of retreat back to a place that says, well, I understand that those people down there might be wrestling with that, but we don't really have to do that. Right. And that's the piece that I kind of want to make sure I say.
Yeah. One thing that occurred to me as one of the conferences I went to years ago on this, the person talked about white fatigue, or they just get tired of working on this. And the thing is that a white person can opt out. You have no exit, and that's where you just got to live in that. The other thing I want to add is that from one of the things that I am concerned with is, I imagine some have experienced this, but white people can come to this since they're sincere, but you don't know what you don't know, and they sort of make a project. Like, you'll be my project, and I'm going to get reconciled with you. And I would think you get the sense of, and I've heard this from other folks, that it's like, I don't want to be someone's project. Indeed. If you want a relationship with me, have a relationship with me, right, and that will maybe help you learn what you need to learn. But I don't want to be a little, guinea pig.
Yeah, that's a good one. Remember years ago when Promise Keepers was
Yeah,
was
yeah,
doing this
yeah,
thing?
yeah. We
A friend of mine, African American brother, he went to one of the big stadium events and he said we got to the crying time, is the way he put it, because he always gets to this place in the meetings where the men start crying and he said it was the hugging time. So this guy was hugging him and saying he loved him and he said, I don't even know this dude. And he said, it's easy for you to hug me in the stadium. He said, because when this is over, you're going to go your separate way. And there was this sense of maybe it was cathartic for that guy to cry and all of this, but it did make it feel like, for my friend, like there was a project. And I've had that happen to me, and I've not wanted, which is another reason why I've not wanted to enter into some of these conversations, because I do feel like I used to say I'm an apostle to white people, because there was this sense that I was supposed to manage their fears in some way, and I thought, why did I feel like it's my job to manage white people's fears? But I was finding myself in those spaces, so if I said something that made them angry or harsh, then somehow I had to, apologize for that. So there's been, so anyway, that made me think about that when I was hearing your response, but I'll just stop there and go to another question.
Let me just say this. If at any point you feel like that, or
Yeah.
begin to feel like that, we trust that my heart's in the right place and,
Indeed.
and name it.
Yeah, and I think that's the advantage of a relationship as opposed to project, is that you can have those kind of honest conversations. So yeah, thank you, Greg.
I think speaking the truth is everything.